Good afternoon. Welcome to the special council meeting of Wednesday, November 24th, 2021 at 4:47 p.m. As we gather, we would like to acknowledge on behalf of council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history, and we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all of the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Now, at this time, I will ask if there's any declaration of interest for this evening. Seeing none, we'll go ahead to item 3, Acres Road Culvert. Recommendation that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approve the Acres Road Emergency Culvert Replacement and award to McRae Excavating Limited at a cost of $33,326.40, inclusive of non-refundable HST. Motion and a seconder, please. Councillor Mackay and Councillor Jackson. This goes to Lane.
That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, we had a 1,500 culvert collapsing on Acres Road between Queens Line and Kerr Line, which is a 5-foot culvert. It's collapsing, and staff are proposing that it would be replaced before wintertime. We did receive three quotes ranging from $32,000 to almost $52,000. And staff feel that the culvert should go ahead and be replaced, as we staff don't have time, and with the so that it is a larger undertaking. Due to the size of the culvert and bypass pumping. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you. Two things, Lee. Now, that road, like right now, you have it passable, correct?
The road is closed, but I know people are pushing it out of the way, so we do come back and close the road, and it is closed on Municipal 511.
Oh, I thought it was open because it's been that way for over 2 weeks. The one is pushed. One of the signs are pushed away over to on the Queens Line end, pretty nearly in the ditch. And the other one, it's been moved as well. I know everybody's been traveling. I guess what I'm saying is, I'm wondering, how are you going to pay for this? Is it in our maintenance budget? Do we have enough money to pay for that?
No, we don't. So we had $15,000 in our budget. For culverts, which we've exhausted, and then this would come out. I believe if Sean can help me, they would come from taxation. But maybe Sean, if you can.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I can add to that, Councillor McLaughlin. So, yeah. Basically, with something like this, we have money in reserve. If at the end of the year we're in a surplus position, we wouldn't use the money from reserve. And if at that time we deem that we need to use the money from reserve to pay for this project, we would. So either it's going to come from the year-end surplus if we're in that position. If not, the balance of this job would come from a reserve, whether it's working capital or I have some reserve numbers here, but there'll be just off the top of my head, bear with me here. It could come from capital reinvestment as well. And possibly road purposes. So there's a few different reserves where we could make that decision at the end of the year at that point in time.
Okay. I guess I'm wondering, Lane, I realize it, and it's so late in the season, like to start tackling this job. What would it cost for us to do it in-house?
So the price of the culvert is approximately $9,500. But with the bypass pumping, we would have to rent, and it would take staff about a week to complete. With the gravel, it'd probably cost the municipality with resources not including staff, approximately about 15 to 18,000 with bypass pumping.
Okay. I'm just wondering if we could put it off till next year and do it then in-house. It's just $30,000 seems like an awful lot of money to put out. And I know the culvert and I know the road could be closed. There's no reason for anybody to have to travel that road.
And that is an option. With the side of the culvert is large for our staff. They could do it this time of year, so we wait till spring. But we feel that the culvert is collapsing and it should be changed sooner than later.
Yeah. No, and I understand all that. And I guess if there were houses on that road, I could understand sooner than later. But when there's no houses on the road, there's no need of anybody having to travel it other than inconvenience, that road. And I'm just trying to look at the bottom dollar is what I'm trying to do. Just an option like that, but if that's wishes of council to go ahead and do it, then so be it. But I would like to see it do it ourselves and do it in the spring. When anything you go to do in the wintertime, it's never done as well as in the summer because you're out there and the weather conditions and everything. It just, it happens, but is the job well done? But those are just my comments. It's up to council.
Anyone else? Councillor Jackson?
Is there not one house closer to Queen's Line, like between, I'm trying to get my, there's none? Acres Road.
There's one at the car, there's one at the car line.
Where does Debbie Troutman live? Is that not on Acres Road? Debbie Troutman, but I'm trying to...
You're thinking of Debbie Hawthorne?
Hawthorne, yeah.
And that's on the other side of the Queen's Line, between Queen's Line and Blind Line.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, I have one question. If this culvert collapses over the winter, then how does that leave us if we don't repair it now?
We have to close the road. Fully close. If with traffic, it would be changing now. We would leave the road closed now. And we would fix it in the spring if the route that council wishes, and it'd be fixed. It'd be fixed in the spring, and it wouldn't collapse more to the point with no vehicle traffic over top of it.
So is it currently a steel covered or is it cement?
It's steel.
Do we know the age of that?
We do not.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of the processes we're working next year is to inventory all of our culverts. And get a sense of location and number of them and size and also the current status of them.
Okay, so if we do decide not to proceed and do it next year, how would we go about closing the road? Because that culvert could conceivably collapse with a vehicle on top of it, right?
That's correct, yeah. We'd probably go ahead, if we were due for wintertime, we would place concrete barricades on either side of the culvert and place no exit signs on either side of the road.
Okay. Councillor Mackay?
Is there any, can you perceive any problems during the winter with that washing out, or would that form some kind of a dam, or would that be a problem?
There's always a chance in the spring runoff, but it is a large culvert. But it is the water course is a significant water course. With no traffic on top of it, it should be fine.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Reeve Regier, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I kind of am agreeing here with Councillor McLaughlin. If there's no traffic on that road and we could leave it until the spring, that's a significant cost savings if we can leave it that long. I would be in favor of it if we can just close it off completely. I don't see why there would be an issue.
Councillor Jackson?
I think if we're going to close it off, I'd want to see something more permanent, like a cement structure at each end or something, because like Councillor McLaughlin has said, that people are traveling it now. I mean, $30,000 is one thing, but a lawsuit is another if we don't go ahead with it. And that's my only concern. And I guess, I don't know, are there any bus routes going that way for any reason at all? If we could check that out as well before we close it. And I know that delays you a bit, to finalize this project. But I think that's important to note. I doubt that there is, but do you know Councillor McLaughlin at all?
There may be buses that travel across it, but there's no need to travel across it because there's no kids.
Right, but
I
they may
mean,
be going
they-
from one thing to another.
Yeah, but they could go down to Magnesium Road and make go Magnesium Road to the Kerr line, up the Kerr line, or
Yeah,
vice versa.
Not picking anybody up, that's for sure, obviously.
Yeah.
But,
I know there's buses that go across it. Right now, I'd hope they're not going across it, especially if they have kids on it, because the signs are there. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, they've been there for a month, Lane?
A couple of weeks, yeah, 3 weeks, I think.
Yeah,
Something like that.
3 weeks at least.
well, I would say if there's buses going over it, we need to get it fixed right away. If the buses can route around, then we can close the road and wait until the spring, but I'm in favor of doing it now if the buses need to go.
Yeah, and if I can
And the
address,
sooner the better, that gets really closed up, because that's dangerous. Like I said, 30,000 is one thing, a lawsuit is a total other thing, especially when we're made aware of it now.
Councillor Mackay?
Instead of closing the whole road, I'd say the far end at Queens Line Foot Road closed, because if farmers want to go down there for the next couple of weeks, whether they're harvesting, plowing, or even in the spring, we won't be able to do it right away in the spring either. So if you could close off the road at the top of the hill for the culvert, but just put a sign and say, no exit, no. But people don't want to go down there. Farmers want to go down to their fields. There might be corn still out, no? Anyways. Put manure out, I don't know. But in the spring, we're not going to get at it right away in the spring either. Can't start that till probably the end of May, right?
it'll be after the water level.
Yeah, so I don't think you should close it off. Just close off that part with cement block barriers and
Thank you. Councillor Jackson?
It has to be a permanent closure if it's going to be a closer. If it's going to be closed, because Pembroke Street West has been under construction and there's huge signs in the middle of the road closing it. And how many people have you seen traveling around on the other side of the road around the sign to keep going so that they can get to the end of the west end quicker than going the detour? People don't listen to signs, guaranteed. So it has to be, and this is a big sign. It blocks it blocks the whole side of the
sure,
road.
because I drove around it. I know what you mean.
I figured so.
Okay, so do we want to entertain not passing this motion and waiting for more information to come back next council?
No, either do it or don't.
So we don't have time to wait for another council meeting?
We could do a motion to postpone to the next meeting?
But we're not
Or
sure if
okay.
the road is safe to do so for
I
another
got it.
week.
So let's ask
Yeah,
the CAO what he wants.
and can I add, sorry, the current road now, we have signs on each end to the road closed. But actually at the crossing, we had barricades across. And I believe it's been checked on, but so farmers were using, it was road closed at sign at each end, but they were using it to get to the fields. But the actual, it was closed. And if we were waiting till spring, we would put concrete barriers on either side of the culvert.
Okay, still doesn't answer our question. How do we want to proceed?
And sorry, and I haven't heard back from, I heard from the bus lines or the New Hampshire County Transportation Authority about it. So typically they'll reach out if road closure is going on for a long time, and I haven't heard anything from them. So I doubt it that it's a bus route, but I'll find out.
Okay. CAO?
I should just note that you'll note that on the other side of Kerr Line, it is a seasonally maintained version. And I'm assuming there's a reason why this road is not seasonally maintained. We don't know. We want to ensure as part of the asset management plan that all roads get counts, including our gravel roads, to make those determinations. It's very important to note that there's no houses here. But I recommend that if we intend to do the work, I should note that there's a number of projects on the budget for next year, and because of the timing of waiting till after the water to do this when we would normally be graveling roads or starting work on those in-house construction roads, it's not going to necessarily, yes, we will save some funds, but there is dewatering in the size of the culvert. So I think council has to either I think staff are recommending that we proceed, and then we should take a broader look at whether roads of this nature that don't have any houses on them that aren't necessarily required. Yes, to Councillor McLaughlin's point, might be an inconvenience, but I think we have to have that broader look across all our roads as part of the asset management plan. But in this case, if people are using it, even though it's collapsed and even though there's signage that tells us that it's being used, and my recommendation would be we proceed, because if we wait till the spring, there's a bunch of other projects still on, plus seasonally summer maintenance to do it.
Okay, so that leaves us with the actual recommendation. So we're going to vote on that. And you want me to read it again? Recommendation that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approve the Acres Road Emergency Culvert Replacement and award the McCrae Excavating Limited at a cost of $33,326.40, inclusive of non-refundable HST. So, all in favor? Against? Carried? We will fix the culvert. Now we move on to 3.2. Quarterly report. Recommendation that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region receive the quarterly 2021 report, administrative report for informational purposes. Motion and a seconder, please. Brigadier and Councillor Jackson. And this goes to Rob, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll start with community development.
Yeah, thanks. So through the months of July through to September 30th, the township issued 74 building permits, including 13 new dwellings and 27 septic systems, among others. We delivered 22 welcome packages of the 75 delivered to date. We operated the tourist booth for the first time. We were closed all of 2020, and we operated it between July 26th and 31st of this year. Including the coordination of 20 volunteers, and we held a recognition lunch for the volunteers relating to that. And lastly, key activities. Chair and Councillor Mackay and the Mayor joined me in conducting a site visit to Glasshouse Botanics. So we discussed the current operations of Glasshouse Botanics located within our industrial park, and discussed future plans relating to that business. So. It was a pretty busy quarter. Thanks.
Rob, who's next?
Over to the treasurer.
Thank you. I'll be quick. As of September 30th, we had 382 utility counts remaining in arrears. I won't touch on tax because it's a little bit funky with the due date due at the end of October. There's a typo under the next heading of overall. Instead of as of June 30th, it should read as of September 30th. I apologize for that. But at that time, we had $3.4 million owed to us in terms of taxes, utilities, and other accounts receivable. During the quarter, we processed 116 tax certificates. And then some key activities, applied for and secured the debentures for the 2021 compactor drum roller and the John Deere grader. Finance staff spearheaded the implementation of Access E11. We processed the final and supplementary tax bills as well as PIL tax invoices, and then we began preliminary work for the interim audit, which was completed at the beginning of Q4. So with that, I'll turn it back to Rob to pass along.
And then Sean will come back at the end with the budget summary if there's any highlights there. So Jonathan's next at fire.
Thank you. The third quarter for fire was quite busy. We had 28 emergency calls, including a large increase in motor vehicle accidents, I suspect with the busier travel season and the lifting of some of the COVID restrictions. One of them being an extrication. We also promoted a number of firefighters to lieutenants. Congratulations to John Malcolm, Mike Meadows, John Cull, Aaron Schneider, Wade Lummox, and Mark McCullough, all moving from firefighter to lieutenant in their respective stations. And in the fourth quarter, we're looking forward to doing our Alarm for Life program and training in an acquired structure. Thank you.
Great. I just want to say, even though we're going through, hold your questions and you could ask them at the end. Just in terms of the Office of the CIO, so thanks to Carmen, Marcia, and Amanda for their work. So the Seniors Home Support as an active living pilot is really going well. You'll know that we have grant funding till the end of June. So one of them is offering the frozen meal program. So there's been some pickup for that. On the stats, I want to highlight 10 weddings. So that's Carmen in the council chambers. That's not even including the recent people that we've also appointed, and that'll be finalized. They just have to do the necessary paperwork. So obviously it's a service that people require. Significant work went into updating all the HR policies, so we're glad that that's done. The Westmeath Rec Task Force, and this is reflected here, but Jordan also supports them. We did a household survey that went directly to 498 households, and so expect a report from the task force in the new year. So we got some good responses back on the household survey, and we'll look to maybe duplicate that in other parts of the township. Just in terms of the importance of health and safety, I want to note we've coordinated working from heights for staff as well in terms of refreshers. And just one last point is the work that went into kind of just keeping the COVID protocols in place that we're required to do in terms of as an employer, but then also the vaccination policy and the work that went into that earlier in the quarter. So next would be Jordan at Parks and Rec.
All right, thanks, Rob. I guess I'll start with by the numbers. So the good news is that sports were somewhat revived before restrictions did take place. So it did allow for some summer programming to take place. So you can see ball diamond rentals, we had 20 and a half hours. Ice rentals started up in September. So we had our plant start up at the beginning of September with a start date on the 15th. In addition to this, we also had a few hours on rented for the slab. We had our upstairs hall rented for 16 hours. We also hosted a few vaccination clinics. When we take a look at our key activities, a few things I just want to highlight here is the Boyer Latteroo Parkette. So the work that was to be completed was completed, and I know we are looking at future amenities to take place in 2022. We also had some accessibility upgrades that did occur at the Beachburg Arena. In addition to that, we also had a major brine leak that was repaired in time so that we could ensure that the continuation of ice operations did in fact take place. We also had our deadline for our community recreation grant, so $5,000 was budgeted for this year, and all the monies was allocated to 4 different associations. And finally, we did have a delay in the Westmeath Arena. An investigation of water issues did take place, and we were looking to complete that in Q4. Thank you.
Next is Public Works.
Thank you, Rob. We had 200 residents visit the fall landfill, fall hazardous waste event that was conducted on September 25th. We also had 125 refrigerators that were degassed at the landfill. The final Grading was completed on Powers Road and double surface treated with applied. Also, in that same time period, Gray Street and Ann Street project was completed by B.R. Fulton. And also the project started on Olmsted Jeffrey Lake Road. The department did receive the new John Deere grader and also changed 7 culverts. During the same time period, there was 3 of the 7 gravel roads that were completed. And also the Haley town site treatment plant generator was replaced. And we also had training from the county of Renfrew. Jason Davis had a training for us for Public Works and also Parks and Recreation on hazardous plants. And look ahead with the scales, the landfill, and also the full operation of the Cobham wastewater treatment plant. Thank you.
So next will be Sean with the budget summary, and then Carmen with a quick overview of all the work you did here at council, and then we'll take any questions after both of them.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Well, this is an odd quarter to report on because we're reporting on Q3 in Q4 during the next year's budget. So there's lots of moving parts to it. But basically, I think what you need to know for this one is it's too early to tell if we're going to be in or what kind of surplus or deficit position we would be in. It is anticipated that in Q4, we'll still expense but $500,000 in policing costs, $150,000 in curbside collection, and then $40,000 hopefully in a transfer to reserve. So where we're at right now is if you look at just the graph, it looks as if we'd be in a big surplus position, but there's still a lot of costs to go out, and those will be reconciled at year end and probably in the Q4 report, and maybe before then have a report back to council. I think that's basically all I really need to share at this point, and then if there's questions at the end, I can surely take them. Thank you.
And council business, 28 bylaws. Some of them include human resource policies. You heard 5 zonings, 3 development agreements, 2 debentures, and you appointed your auditor. 48 staff reports were brought forward, and 2 presentations were received at the third quarter.
So just in close, I just want to thank staff for all the work. I was saying to somebody that it feels like the start of this term was just yesterday, and it started with a flood in April 2019, followed by a year and a half to 2 years of the pandemic. So despite all that, a lot of work continues to be done, and the work can only be accomplished with staff. So I'd like to thank everybody for their work, not just the managers, but everybody, from the volunteer firefighters to our front counter staff, the entire team. So the township can only achieve good things with the team members that we have, and I just want to express my thanks for the work they do every day.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, staff. Call for a vote. All in favor of accepting as a carried? Thank you. Thank you, staff. Now we move on to 3.3, revised 2022 budget. Recommendation that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region move into committee of a whole with the liaison for finance and administration in the chair to receive the revised draft 2022 budgets. Motion and a seconder, please. Councillor Jackson and Revergier, thank you. And this goes to Sean? Well, actually, Carmen, and then, no, what's your name? Charlene. Councillor Jackson, and then Sean. Okay.
Thank you. I'll just pass it over to Sean.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. I do have a council report, and I think the best way to go through this is I'll kind of touch on my report first, and then I have provided big pieces of paper. Basically, the only thing that's different in those than what you've seen before are any changes that came out, which they're highlighted in yellow. So before we even get into that, you'll notice at the very top of each page, you should see the first one should be general revenue, November 24th. This is so that you don't mix it up with the one I gave you for the November 3rd. Again, the only things I've changed are the yellow highlights. Okay, so on November 3rd, council received the first presentation. Staff took direction, and then happened to be on November 4th, the next day, we received word from the Ontario government regarding OCIF. So some good news there is OCIF's total pot, if you will, across the province is going to be doubled. That does not necessarily mean that our portion will be doubled. We haven't heard what our portion is at this point.
What is OCA?
Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund.
Okay.
So I thank you for correcting me. I don't like when people talk in acronyms, then I just went and did it. So thank you for keeping me honest. So we received word that the total pot across the province is going to be doubling. Again, we don't know what ours is, but at least we have a pretty good idea that we're going to get more money than we did this year. I'm not going to touch on the analysis part. I'm just going to go right to the financial implications piece, because the financial implications piece speak to what's in the analysis part. So these are some changes. So I guess what I'll do at this point is I'll talk about the change, then I'll turn it to the chair if there's any questions on that particular change. I think for the most part, there probably won't be until we get into some of the bigger items. And then at the very end of the presentation, or at the end of this, I go through your long pieces of paper where those changes are reflected in your budget, so that we kind of move through it systematically. And actually, I apologize, before we get there, you have received an updated fees and charges schedule. So there was a bit of a confusion in the original version we gave you. So there is an updated one that the recreation fees are figured out, and then there were a few other changes, and then the water rates did change based on the direction that we were provided. So anyway, just in any event, just so you don't lose it, it says draft 2 in the top left corner. That would be the most updated draft at this point in time. But anyway, moving on. So in the big part of the budget, so the first piece for the airport project and contribution. So the more of a housekeeping note is that we had the $50,000 expense, and it was a bit of a confusing item because it was to be done this year, but it didn't happen. But in any event, there's a $50,000 contribution from reserve, so that shows on the revenue side. So I guess if no other changes came out of the last meeting, we would have $50,000 more dollars there. However, but it flows into the bigger picture. So I'll turn it back to the chair if there's any questions on that, but I guess I'll turn it back, see if there's any questions. We'll go from there.
But that's just an in and an out, right? So there'd be an expense and then
I had the
a revenue.
expense in the original one. I didn't
Oh,
have.
you didn't have the
Yeah, I didn't
revenue.
have the contribution from.
Okay, so it's $50,000 less.
$50,000, yeah. So more of a housekeeping note. I didn't want to say it, but I thought I got to be honest, so.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Yeah, I sit on the board, and they've gone back out again to try to tender, hopefully come back in January. The tender come in way over what we had estimated. I think, Sean, you're aware of that?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. I don't know if they've touched base with you.
Not real recently, but I have spoken with them in the past little bit. They did send us a bunch of projections on different costs and different interest rates, so I'm aware of, I think, of what's happening there.
Yeah, I'm just making you aware, I don't think the $50,000 is going to cover our portion.
No, that's just so we have $100,000 there budgeted.
Okay.
But we had 50,000 that
So we have 150?
No, we have 100 total.
Okay, so what we've 50 in reserve, or at the end of this year, there'll be 50 in reserve?
Yes.
And you've budgeted another 50?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I think maybe at that point, we're coming into a realistic figure.
Yeah, and that helped when they sent the projections.
Yeah.
So I think we should be in the ballpark anyway.
Okay, no, I'm aware that the cost was way over what they anticipated.
Okay, thank you. Good to proceed, Madam Chair? Okay. Sale of industrial park land. So on November 17th, council agreed to proceed with a possible sale of the remaining parcel. So that was after our original budget meeting. The sale wouldn't take place until the next calendar year, which is 2022. So in knowing that, I've added what the minimum tender bid would be as revenue. So there's $20,000 more of revenue, I guess, for lack of a better term. Any questions on that? Seeing good to go. Okay, I knew that most of them would probably be pretty quick, but like to give the opportunity if there are those questions. The transfer of responsibility of Beachburg Ball Diamond Lights. So the Ball Diamond in Beachburg isn't on township property. I don't anticipate this is something that will happen very quickly, but it is the intent to get that figured out in 2022. We did have a budgeted line item of $500. So just if you're looking through, $500 is taken out of the budget. But we'll work through that, or Jordan will work through that with the Agricultural Society. And I'll turn that back to Madam Chair.
Councillor Mackay.
I'm going to speak for the Agricultural Society. We use the lights maybe 8 hours, the 22nd and 23rd this year. If we had to take care of them lights, I have no idea what light standards cost or maintain them, and we don't want it. We only go there 2 days. So you guys use the Ball Diamond, that's fine. Well, someone uses it.
I think where this, I believe where this is that the land isn't the township's land. And I think that the intent is that we work with whoever owns the land, which might be the Agricultural Society.
It is the Agricultural
So we work with the
Society.
Agricultural Society we don't own the land, we're paying this bill, and then work to pass that across, and then the Agricultural Society can handle that. But that would be something that
Okay,
the
I'm going
Ag
to
Society
speak for
and
the
Jordan would-
Agricultural Society. We don't want anything to do with that. We told the rec that we'd help them fix the fence. We use that Ball Diamond just for 2 days in the fair, 2.5 days. They've used our facility for years. We don't fix the lights. We didn't put the lights in. We haven't wanted anything to do with them.
Madam Chair, if I may, I should just note that we don't program it either. So if the Rec Association is responsible for that, they can apply through the recreation grant. We have $10,000 and they can apply for an operating grant to cover their lights, but the township neither owns the land or programs the land. So it would be like us getting somebody who's not involved with the arena to pay for the arena expenses. So in this case, it's a very small amount, but we neither program or own. And if it's the Rec Association that's responsible for it, they can apply for a grant and it would be weighed with all the others. But
Yeah,
we shouldn't be paying for things that we're not involved in at all.
Well, do you want to pay for a new Ball Diamond somewhere? That might be expensive. So the Ball Diamond's been there forever, and
I
that's
think
fine.
Councillor
It's
Mackay,
okay.
that's a little out of line to be saying that, to threaten something.
No, I'm just asking, would you like to pay for a
And
new
to
one?
say that you're speaking on behalf of the association.
We've already talked about this.
Well, I think it has to go to the association and they need to vote on it, the Agricultural Society, and not have one person. I think we have to do our due diligence moving forward. But while you sit here, you're sitting as a councillor.
I agree.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. You can shut your mic off, please. Thank you. Sean.
Okay, moving on to recognizing community donations. So again, more of a housekeeping note on the capital sheet. That was the very last, that showed all the potential capital projects and special projects. On the original version, I just had our portion of, nothing's changed for the bottom line, but you will see that under the donation piece, there's so it's a split, $10,000 township portion, then $10,000 from donations that we hope to get for that project. So that's has no bearing on the bottom line of how much capital money we'd be spending, et cetera. So I think I'm probably good to continue, I believe.
No, I have no idea
Oh.
what you just said. You care to explain that again?
Sure. So on the original budget that I gave on the November 3rd, there was a capital project that showed $10,000 for a project at the rest area at the Boyer Ladderoute Park in Westmeath. What the intent of that line item was to be $10,000 of our money. We were hoping to find some community support for another portion, for additional of that project. What I've done though is I've recognized on that capital sheet those donations at this point. So it's still a $10,000 township project or township contribution, but I've showed an additional $10,000, so it's a 50-50 split. So I'm just giving it recognition that there would be community support to that project.
And that's for the 2023 budget?
2022.
22, sorry.
It's okay, I get to do that all the time.
Getting ahead of myself. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Can I ask one question? Is there not a rest area in Westmeath already that was built a couple of years ago for the bikes? Was there not one talked about at near the arena?
It was talked about, but it hasn't brought to fruition. And they, Tour de Whitewater has some funds through WDRA, but that hasn't happened. And with the cenotaph not moving and staying where it is, this would complete that project, and we're hoping to work with Tour de Whitewater to make sure that can happen here and complete the parquet. So they have plans and funding, just looking for a place. So we're hoping to two birds, one stone. The township would not proceed with the project if we don't have the 50% support. So that's the goal.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McLaughlin.
More clarification than anything. So are we now putting $20,000 towards that?
No, so I guess I should have done at the very start of it is put the total project, anticipated project cost would be 20,000. The township would only cover 10.
Okay.
And then look, but I put it as a 10 and just the township portion, but I wanted to make sure that on this draft, I did recognize that there would be will hopefully be some community support for that project.
So I think to get it straight in my mind, we're going to put $10,000 in, provided we get support for $10,000
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
Okay. No, as long as we're not putting more money, Sean, that's.
Yep.
So the project won't go ahead unless there's a matching 10 to our 10, correct? Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Sean.
Okay. And then speaking about ORPC dividends, so jog your memory that we did have two capital items that we were going to fund from those dividends and interest on the promissory note. So what we've decided to do is leave that typically, or what we were going to do was take that revenue, essentially transfer it into reserve, and then subsequently use the money from that reserve for two capital projects. However, we are going to keep that money in that reserve, the ORPC reserve, and we intend to use that in the future to benefit the ORPC service area. Okay. The increase in the water rates, so I was suggested we look at a 2% increase in the water rates. This provided additional revenue of $20,000. Staff are proposing to use that to evaluate recent water issues such as the trialmethane exceedance and excessive potassium permanganate in the Cobden system. And you'll see then on that same page what those rates now turn to. So the residential would be $164.90. Every 2 months. So
Sean, can you remind us what it was before?
they are in the fees and charges bylaw that has been provided.
No, but at budget, what did you propose before?
It was a 0%, so it was the same as what the 2021. If you go to page,
It's very confusing.
second last page, I think.
Of the fees and charges.
Yes.
I think council just needs to understand what it was proposed that we had kind of agreed to at the user fee.
So it
And-
was originally proposed to be a 0% increase, which would have been $161.67 every 2 months. The new rate is proposed to be $164.90 every 2 months, which is a 2% increase.
So this 2% strictly deals with the $20,000?
Yes, it generates an extra $20,000 in revenue. And we propose to use that to evaluate the two long words that are
Yeah,
scientific
That's okay.
in Cobden.
Is council, you're looking for direction for that? So is council in favor of that? 2% increase to the water?
I believe that was approved last meeting, was it?
No, it wasn't. It was
It wasn't,
0%.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. What it was approved before was 0%. Now we're looking
No.
at 2%.
You actually directed us to come back at 2. We thought we would be able to put that extra revenue in reserve. However, as a follow-up to the water coloring issues we had last year, we heard back from Aqua in the intermeeting time, and that extra 2% would help offset those costs to figure that out. But at the last meeting, you did want 2%, but we won't be able to put that in reserve. We'll have to pay for this.
Yes, I recall that now. Councillor McLaughlin.
Okay, so is this going to, is it more studies or is it going to fix the problem? Because we need to, and I can agree to the 2% increase as long as it's going to fix the problem. Because we can't have that happening again.
Yeah, Elaine can speak to this. So chemical is used. It's trying to get an understanding of what to use to make sure that the water is not discolored. But there are, as part of the operating, the use of chemicals. It's just getting that balance right. But that's a non-scientific way of explaining it. But Elaine, if you wanted to add on.
Yeah, I think you nailed it pretty good, Rob. It's more, it's a study, but coming out of the study, it might be set point for the chemical and try to get down to the bottom of what has to be done. There could be recommendations for equipment, but until the study is done, we won't know that. So hopefully it'll provide a guidance document for Aqua.
Okay, thank you. Sean, go ahead.
Okay. We have the reinstatement of the beach program. So this would consist of two trained summer students and then some supplies for them. That's a $23,000 increase. Should the students not be secured, funds will be allocated for partnerships with neighboring municipalities. So that was direction that we received to add that into the budget. So I'll turn that back to the chair.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Maybe, I'm not sure, maybe Councillor Jackson would have better knowledge, but I thought at one time that, is it Greater Madawaska, the Eganville area, they had training, they had a swim program. Did we piggy bank on that, or I'm a way off base? I know one year we did offer money or subsidy to Pembroke, if anybody wanted to go to Pembroke. But I thought there was something, but I can't pinpoint it.
I vaguely recall that,
Yeah.
but I don't know if it was utilized or not. And I don't know if we ever, I remember talking about it, but I don't know if it was passed. Georgian, perhaps you can answer?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, during that time, a report did go to council, and we were looking to team up with neighboring municipalities, and BV was one of them. So we did have residents attend the program there, and we didn't have as many that attended in Pembroke, but it was available to the residents.
Okay, thank you. But that was the direction that we had advised that we wanted to go with regards to the swim program for this coming year.
And Madam Chair, just my understanding of the direction was try to see if we could, and if we couldn't, we'd come back to council on utilizing the amount to work with other municipalities. So we'll try, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're coming back to you on looking to work with other municipalities, just because there's not a lot of lifeguards, and with the pandemic, more haven't been certified. So, but we'll try. But that was the intent. You'd see a follow-up report if we can secure students.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So then we have, moving on to the next item, the tandem truck and LED streetlight debentures. So the original draft had one debt repayment next year for these two debentures. And then when we speak down further to the Cameron Street project, it kind of ties in a little bit with why I've done this. In speaking with Infrastructure Ontario, who we use to secure the debentures, it is recommended the township budget for two repayments, given that we have Olmsted Jeffrey Lake Road, the tandem truck, and streetlight debentures to apply for in 2022. So basically, I guess the way I would say this is, originally I had one debt repayment because that's what we probably are going to have, or it would be anticipated we would pay one payment back to them next year. But in going through the process with them in applications, it is recommended that we do show that we will, we are budgeting for two repayments. It's kind of our commitment that we understand what that effect's going to have on our budget, and therefore I've changed that to add the second repayment for those two anticipated debentures. So I will turn that back to the chair for any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, go ahead.
Okay, leaf and yard waste days. So in 2021, we did implement leaf and yard waste collection pilot program. We ran it for 2 weeks, the first one being May 10th to 13th, and the second being November 8th to 12th. During May 10th to 13th week, we had 258 pickups. It cost us almost $11,000, which resulted in about a $42 per pickup. And then I list the amount of pickups that were in each area. During the second week that we offered it, November 8th to 12th, there were 237 pickups. And again, I outline where they were. That we haven't received the invoice, but we anticipate it to be $6,000. So it'd be about $25 to $26 per pickup, is at least our anticipation. So given the statistics, staff are proposing to discontinue the program as there are about 3,700 units that pay the curbside collection fee, and only about 250 have used the service. We recommend the curbside collection fee to be $160 per unit. So in the original fee, we had $161. 2021 was $156. So we recommend to go from $156 to $160, which is a 2.5% increase. The estimated revenue generated would be $593,000. So to put that in perspective, that's 2% increase over the revenue generated from 2021, which is similar to the water increase. This increase will still cover the contract, the increase in the contract for the waste and recycling collection, as well as contribute a very modest $16,000 to reserve. So basically, in short, we were 156. The first draft, we came at 161 with the leaf and yard waste collection in it and the additional cost to the contract. Looking at the statistics, after we've received the statistics from the pilot program, we are recommending not continuing with the leaf and yard waste, bringing that fee to $160 to cover the increase in contract costs, and then the balance transfer to reserve. So with that, I'll pass it back to the chair.
Councillor Mackay.
Increased cost, would that be the fuel?
I think just standard inflation, fuel, anything that goes into, I guess, how they take care of it. I mean, I think it's just what's happening across every sector is my anticipation.
All right, thank you.
I can add, sorry, Sean, just the contract was defined to increase it every year. Yep.
Okay, so I guess we're good with that. Moving on. Sturgeon Mountain Road. So the first draft suggested the reconstruction with just double surface treatment, and there was a lot of dialogue around that. We did receive direction to kind of go back and see if we could increase our funding to pave it. And it just happened to be the next day that we found out that we are going to be receiving OCIF, the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, doubling of that grant. So we recommend using some of those extra funds to actually pave this road. This would mean that the job would be completely funded through OCIF. And then if we have any additional OCIF funds, we recommend kind of keeping them aside for the Forsters Falls Boulevard job. That was the other project that was proposed, because we're not quite certain on how much that's going to be. We budgeted 240 sidewalks, boulevards and sidewalks job in Forsters Falls. We budgeted $240,000 from OCIF. So OCIF essentially would cover that project and Sturgeon Mountain Road paving. So with that, I will turn it back to the chair.
I guess my only comment is I'm not sure that it's formula-based OCIF funding that is doubling. It could be capital project funding doubling. So I think until we get confirmation that it's the formula-based that's being doubled, I wouldn't want to see this project being on the books and then us having to come up with it. But
yeah, and I think just in response to that, I think we just want to make sure we have it recorded that
if it's there,
yeah, we're good to go. And then obviously if it's not there and we don't have those funds, we'd have to come back to council with either a plan and look for direction at that point. But
as long as an RFP doesn't go out until we confirm funds, and as long as people don't plan it, because oftentimes we get a report and says, oh, we were supposed to do this with these funds, we didn't get it, but we're going ahead. and the RFP is out, and this is the cost. So
the tender
do
will
not
have
send
both.
the tender out.
Or the tender will have both options so that council can either way, because we would probably, this job, show it as what the cost would be for double surface versus paving. So you'll even have that opportunity regardless. So even though you put the extra money in, if the cost differential is too ugly, council will be able to make that. The other thing I should note on OSIF, my understanding is they're changing how the calculation's going to be. It'll be more asset management based on, so the whole calculation, to Sean's point and your point, Madam Chair, is that we don't know what it's going to look like in terms of ours, but we'll if we tender, but the likelihood is by the time we get there and the staff do the work to prep it, we would tender for both types of service so council can make that determination.
Okay, Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you. I guess I'm going to ask Lane my normal question. What is the road count on that road? Traffic count? There's only how many houses on that road?
I can get it here. So we had it in the previous presentation, but just give me 1 second, I can get it.
I think.
I think I have it here, Lane. I have it as 140 in 2020 and 92 in 2019. But I'll let Lane
So
confirm
140, and we're going to pave it. Look, I really wish we could get our traffic counts and a policy put together so that we would know, okay, if there's less than 500 cars on it, then it goes to double surface street. And because I know we talked at one time of turning this back to gravel, correct? And now we're going to pave it. Like, let's get someplace where we have a policy, what are we going to do, rather than jump all over. Just because there's funding to do it, does that mean there's other roads that need a lot of work as well? I can put lots of them together. I know that it's been brought to my attention that Colesmith Road would certainly be nice if it was hard asphalt. I just, with 90 to 150 cars on it, and you're going to gravel it. I know the reason. I know you tell me because there's so much big trucks on it. Well, I don't know. I would love to do every road. I would love to see them all hard surfaced. But I think we need to come down with some firm figures somehow of what we're going to do. And I'll stop at that.
Yeah, I think we discussed this last time, and we did direct the Public Works Manager to look at hard surfacing it rather than, to paving it rather than tar and chip because of the cost and the wear and tear on tar and chip, or whatever it's called. I call it tar and chip. It's easy. And then it doesn't get torn up near as fast with the bigger trucks going on it, and unfortunately they do use it. There is a business there that travels back and forth on that road. It was certainly on direction of council at that time, at the last meeting, that this is why it's being suggested. Councillor Mackay.
I see your point, Darrell, but there's a gravel pit there that McRae's use. There's the trucks to the corn plant, and McGregor's use that road all the time. So if there's 102 vehicles on the road, 3 are cars, there's only 4 houses, and the rest are trucks. And if you put double tar and chip, you're replacing it in 3 years. Thanks.
Councillor McLaughlin.
I guess what I'm really, really asking for is I want numbers. I don't want somebody to say, there's this, there's that. I want numbers. I want to know how many trucks do travel these roads. So that, and I know what you're saying, and yes, it was direction of council. You're absolutely correct. I just like to have some hard facts on when and why. Like we've jumped all over on Richards Road. Everywhere. We went to gravel. We spent what, $7,000 or something putting coal patch on it? Well, that wasn't the answer. But anyway, more than the road is, I think we need to somewhere come up with policies and let's get some numbers so that we have numbers, have proper counts. Large vehicles, small vehicles. I'm sure there's a way you can count those things on the roads. Not somebody saying, well, there's this many because I see them all the time. Well, that doesn't work. I want numbers. That's what I want. And that's more my point of the conversation than anything. I travel a lot of roads, and there's a lot of roads that are in need of a lot of repair as well.
Okay, thank you. It was a direction of council that staff came back, so it's certainly what we had asked as council for staff to do. So moving forward, do you want to vote on these individually if there's an issue, or just pass? I don't want to pass it all at the end and have it all lost in the wayside, so I'd rather have it. I think if we get the funding, we're better off paving this one, and I 100% agree with you, Councillor McLaughlin, with regards to traffic counts and all of that, and that will come, I'm sure, with the update of the asset management plan and all of that. But there are certain roads that have certain special reasons to do things, and roads that don't have special reasons to do things, and this is one of the roads that we've identified a number of times, and when it was suggested to gravel it, it was voted down. So I think this is the best option for this road due to the circumstances. If Lane wants to comment any further, again?
Yeah, if you don't mind. Yeah, and with a new traffic counter that we purchased back in, I think it was April, we teamed up with Matt and Bromley. We purchased 2 of them, and then they actually purchased 3 we actually purchased in April, and we still don't have them yet because there's a chip shortage. We've been hearing. Hopefully, I followed up every couple of weeks, and we're supposed to be getting them next week. So that's one of the first item is to put it onto that section of road, and it will count not even just traffic, but count truck traffic, which will help our policy that we'll be creating. Because the big thing is for if it should be DST or gravel or pavement, is it's not only the actual the traffic count, it's the truck traffic, it's the number of houses. There's many factors that has to come in play of what the road surface should be.
Okay, so I'll put it out there for council. If we get the funding, do you want to do as suggested or do the single hard surface at this point in time? All those in favor of?
Are we voting on the treatment? Is that what we're going to vote on?
Yes.
Okay.
All those in favor of the treatment as suggested?
Which is asphalt, yes. All those in favor?
All those in favor of the treatment as suggested? What is this? I'm tired. It's paving, but then there's another lift or something.
Hot mix. Yeah.
Yes. I don't know paving, to say paving as opposed to tar and chip. Asphalt. Thank you. Do you have anything more to add, or are you just reiterating what you had already said, Councillor McLaughlin?
I'm thinking that in this, you're going to say if we get the funding. Is that correct? Is that in the motion?
I can't.
That if, I want to make sure
So it
that
said the
if we
first
don't
draft
get,
suggested the reconstruction of Sturgeon Mountain Road with double surface treatment. That is tar and chip, correct? Okay. With the announcement of the government, the OSIF, doubling, staff recommend using OSIF additional funds to change the surfacing to pavement due to heavy truck traffic. The estimated additional cost is $100,000, bringing the project cost to $195 to be completely funded through OSIF. If the township has additional OSIF funds, staff recommend directing it to Foresters Falls sidewalks and boulevards projects. So if there's additional funding above and beyond the 195,
it's,
they're going to go as well to Foresters Falls sidewalks and boulevards project. However, if the OSIF funding isn't there, the suggestion is to still keep the double surface treatment, which is tar and chip.
that answered my question.
Is that correct,
No.
Sean?
No, so.
This
so-
is very confusing.
No,
I just
I
have to
know.
say, there's too many
And we're
words.
going to tender both options.
Yeah.
Well, I think if we don't get the extra funding that we're speaking of, Foresters Falls is still, the boulevards and sidewalks are still staying funded through OCIF. So if you're looking at priority from OCIF, Foresters Falls, boulevards and sidewalks. If we get the additional funding that we anticipate that would cover the 195, then we would look at doing Sturgeon Mountain at 195. If we don't get the additional funding and we go for both options, we would obviously come back at that point with a different funding formula. But Foresters Falls, boulevards and sidewalks takes first OSIF grab, and then anything up above and beyond, we look to fund the Sturgeon Mountain Road project. So.
Sorry,
It's not what it says in that report, just so
No,
you know.
well, just to clarify, what I'm saying here is that we're probably going to have additional OCIF funds, and we're already funding Foresters Falls, so we're not looking to use the additional funds after Sturgeon Mountain and Foresters Falls for any other project. Any additional OCIF funds would be directed towards if there's any overages in Foresters Falls. So when we get to the capital sheet, you'll see my capital sheet, and
Okay.
it'll show the how that's being funded.
and if I can add, Sean, the tender will have both options, and there'll be a chance then, when we bring back to council, to decide if we go with DST or hot mix asphalt. And in that report, it'll have the new traffic counts, and then council can decide then of what option, and we'll know if we get the OCIF or not.
Clear as mud. Okay, the motion, or we're just asking for clarification. Is council in favor of that? So for, against? No. Okay,
I just.
go to the next item, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Moving on to Cameron Street. So at the last meeting, council provided direction to staff to evaluate the feasibility of completing one of the larger infrastructure projects that we have shelf ready on the books, which means engineered. At this current time, we have drawings for Cameron Street, Hume Street, Simpson Street, and Crawford Street. Staff are recommending proceeding with Cameron Street, but we have two options. So the average annual daily traffic count is 1,186, and the condition is 3 out of 10, and includes a road, water, and storm drainage components. So option one is the plan that we have shelf ready. It is 2 lifts of asphalt for 250 meters, water main replacement 265 meters, storm improvements of 220 meters, and sidewalk replacement of 220 meters. This section has 1 school and 17 properties. The estimated cost is $1,087,000. 70% of that would be for transportation, 30% for water. The estimated debt repayment over 20 years is about $75,000. Roads would be 52.5, which represents just shy of a percentage point of the proposed 2022 levy. So what's important there is that additional debt repayment is almost a percentage increase in the future over what 2022's levy would be. The water share would be about $22,500 a year and would be 2% of the proposed 2022 water revenue. So that's proposed, or option one, is what is shelf ready at this current time. It's $1,087,000. Option two, which is the extension of Cameron at Earl Street to Vera Crescent, plus Vera Crescent and Pathway, plus Earl Street from Cameron to Cardell. There is a map provided at the end of this report, so we can look at it at a map once I get through the next little bit here. So this option would require additional engineering. It includes everything I mentioned in option one, plus 2 lists of asphalt for the additional 875 meters, the additional water main replacement of 85 meters, storm improvements, and the new pathway. There's an additional 48 properties that are on this extension. This estimated cost would be $2,150,000. The split would be 80% to transportation and 20% to water. This estimated debt repayment is $144,000, so not quite double, but close to double of what the other job was, or the other option was. Roads portion would be $115,200 a year, and water would be $28,800. So at that point, I'll probably pass back to the chair, and then we can look at the map, I'm assuming, and likely bring Lane in to speak about the project.
Is there any questions? Mayor Moore.
Thanks for that. The original project was for Cameron Street to Earl Street, and then some other things have cropped up. Some of the other extensions there are starting to fall apart. There are streets that are worse, but this traffic count on these roads, it's busier than the other streets in the village for some reason. The subdivisions there's one subdivision not even visible in that, so Cardell Street's not visible in that one. So the population in this area is growing. There's still another, I believe, 18 to 20 lots to be divided or to be built. Nothing in the near future, but they are going to come. So the traffic is going to increase. And I really think at least to Earl Street should be done this year. And then and the purple on the bottom there, the easement, the municipal easement should be, something has to be done with that. There's more and more problems with that easement. So in order for the police or bylaw to act on it, we have to be able to visibly tell where the easement is. So I do believe we should go with phase one, if that's what you called it, to include the easement. How does everybody else feel?
Madam Chair, if I can just add, we have this debate about whether we have to do a road and do the pipe at the same time. And I think this is a good example of what's an option two, we're not doing the pipe. And the question is because of the age of the pipe. So it was put in, it's a great 77, 78 was a good year to be born. So the pipe there is fine. So it allows us to resurface, and we hope that will be good for 25 years, which would mean that the pipe in 25 years will be able to be redone. You don't do that extension, then the road gets worse. And then in 10 years, the question is, well, do we have to do the pipe now? Because the pipe will age out. So it's kind of that age-old debate, and hopefully we learn the lesson from Cobden is the pipe under the ground keeps getting older. So there's a window here that's why we've extended to Vera. And there are, to the mayor's point, there's been some real issues in terms of kind of sinking into the road on Earl. So that's why that's been extended. So this is an example of where you can repave without doing the pipe work on Vera. There are some drainage and culvert issues, but that's why we're saying if you're going in there, you might as well get it all done so that because the pipe was put in 77 and that pipe will continue to get older, and then at some point will have to be replaced. So if you pave now, you can pave without doing the pipe on that part of the road. But if you remember 92, 120 on Sturgeon Mountain, this is 1800. So it's probably it's constant traffic from the neighborhood here in terms of density, but then the school, I think, is probably driving the traffic count. And there's some active transportation elements, including the sidewalk and the pathway, which was recognized in the draft plan.
Also heavy transports too, just to reiterate, going to the hardware store, I forgot about that angle. The transports that come in there, they really play havoc trying to turn because there's no place for these trucks to turn, so they're pulling in and they're backing out and they're trying to turn trailers on a dime and not hit our stop sign and not hit cars parked at the parking lot. So, yeah, it needs to be done.
And is that the only, and like, only road into the hardware store?
Yep.
Into
Cameron
another?
Street, as we learned when we had the house fire there, there's only one way in, one way out.
Interesting. Okay, Councillor McLaughlin.
If we're going to do this work, because I think there's a big drainage issue as well in there on Vera Crescent, I've heard, and there's more than that. I'm not totally familiar with it, but I know that there's a big drainage issue in there. And are we going to address the drainage issue as well when we're going to do this road work?
That's correct, yeah, we have money set aside for that.
Okay, because
There's
that
cost
goes back
estimate.
into that pond, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Excuse me, there's a pond in there, and maybe some work needs to be done there, but there's no use doing work on the road if we're not going to do the drainage. So I want to hear that, but we need to address the drainage and get the drainage proper.
That is correct, and part of the cost estimate, I have money in for storm sewer
Okay.
and drainage
No.
in that area.
No, as long as it's going to be addressed, that's my main issue.
So that's if we choose option 2,
That's correct.
correct?
Yeah, sorry, option 1 does have storm works
But only
proposed.
to
Only to
Earl
Earl.
Street? Not Vera?
That's
I
correct.
think Councillor McLaughlin was referring to Vera? Yeah. You'll need to turn your microphone on if you're going to talk.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I had the chair. I think Vera Crescent, that whole area in there, there's big issues. And I'm sure Winton Lane is quite well aware of all the drainage issues. And there's no use fixing a road if we're not going to fix the drainage, because you're just wasting your money in my mind.
What would council like to look at? Option 1 or option 2? Option 1 is Cameron on its own. Option 2 is everything.
If you're going to have construction and upheaval for that for like 6 months, like you may as well do the whole thing, get it over with. If 2 years down the road, if they have to go through it again, taxpayers aren't going to be too happy, so do it once, get it over with.
I guess the question is can we debenture a road for 20 years?
I believe we have with True Love, John, and Crawford.
Okay,
It's that same job, so I use the 20-year
Perfect.
timeline, the same as that, so.
very good. So option 2? Very good. So that'll hit us in 2023, the increase to the tax levy for the debentures. Possibly, maybe not until 2024.
Correct.
Okay? Thank you. Next, Sean.
Okay, so the last item, sorry. Okay, so the levy levy, capital and special projects. So with everything listed above, everything we've spoken about, the levy can remain at 3.5% over 2021. So I think it's important there is that there was a significant amount of adjustments, but it still falls within that 3.5% levy increase that we proposed at the first draft. Basically, with the new proposed draft, there'll be just shy of 35,000 of taxation remaining for capital and special projects. I have, and when we get to, we'll just spend a very short time going through the longer sheets when I'm completed here, but just to see the the capital schedule, et cetera. There was some changes there to how things are being funded. At the last meeting, there were questions regarding bike racks. Staff has done the work to determine that we can get 10 bike racks within the $8,000 budget item. These racks would be placed at the following locations. So at 14 Caroline Street in Beachburg at the playground, 2 Main Street in Cobden, which is the Cobden Beach and Playground. At the municipal office and community hall in Cobden, there would be 2 at this location. At Veterans Memorial Park, at the Cobden's Farmers Market and Playground, the ballpark and playground in Forsters Falls, the Scenic Lookout in Westmeath, the community hall and Ball Diamond in Westmeath, and then the community hall and Ball Diamond in La Paz. So we've indicated at those locations where we would intend to put bike racks, and we would intend to procure 10 within the $8,000 line item that was previously brought to council November 3rd. So I'll turn it back to the chair to take any other questions before we just go through the long sheets for a very small period of time.
You've identified in your report, though, all the changes, and you've identified on the
Yeah.
capital listing just the changes to the funding, so none of the capital projects have changed, just the funding?
Just the funding has changed.
And
The
it
only
stays
capital-
at 3.5?
the only capital project that's changed has been the Cameron, like the addition of Cameron.
Is everybody satisfied as is, or do you have any further questions with regards to the budget at 3.5 and the capital budget as presented? Councillor Mackay?
Not about the budget, just want to know, is there bike racks at Little Lakes? Okay, thank you.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Well, I'm not in favor of these bike racks. First off, I don't think that the ball diamond in Forster's Falls, it's only used Friday nights, as far as I know. I don't think there's any minor ball. There hasn't been, I know that. There's no men's league. I know it's used Friday nights. And it may be, or bike racks, I'm not sure. I would rather see more money spent on benches than bike racks. That's what I'd like to see. We've done a great job with that. I just don't see the funding. And Sean, also, I don't know at what point, but I've asked you to get me a cost. And he's going, yes, Darrell, I have that.
I do. Yeah,
Okay, no, that's what I wanted to
Okay.
know. I wouldn't bring it up yet.
Okay.
Okay, at this point. I just don't see I don't mind, but if I thought they were going to be used, I'd have no problem. But are they going to be used? I don't know. I would far sooner see some more benches put around. That has done just amazing. It's made our whole community look so much nicer. I'm not against spending the money. I just want to see it in the right spots.
The playground certainly gets used during the day a lot with the Forster's Falls people around. So I think the bike rack is more for the day than the night. A lot of people wouldn't necessarily be driving their bicycle to the Ball Diamond at night because of the traffic, and I don't know if there's streetlights all the way out there, but in any event, Mayor Moore.
I have a question for Rec, I believe. I didn't see it in the budget under capital. I'm not sure if this is the right spot for it, but line painting in our parking lots. Does that come under capital or is that regular maintenance? Where do we stand with that?
So that wouldn't be capital. That'd be operating and maintenance. I don't believe we have line painting for roads in our transportation budget. I don't believe there'd be anything in recreation budget for line painting. I don't think you've ever had that before, have you? No. So,
The reason I brought it up because there's complaining now the farmer's market is on and the rink is open. Now people are parking everywhere instead of parking where they should to allow more vehicles. And now the lines in Beachburg have wore off and they're parking willy-nilly again. And so it'd be something that would be nice to alleviate the parking if the line painting was done one every 3 or 5 years. I don't know. I can't remember the last time it was done because I remember in Cobden there was conversations, I believe, with the Agricultural Society and the curling rink over who paid for what, and I know council paid for part.
I
But in
think
Beachburg,
that's
it was
the
all done by
problem, is
rec, I
that
believe.
we don't own the whole parking lot, and that's the
Yeah.
issue, is that we can't do lines on other people's property, so there is an issue, I know. It all has to come down to one, unless Lane thought that there was enough funding in the line painting to offset the parking lots.
Yeah, I can add. So I'm actually been, it was brought up by Mayor Moore for for the two areas, and I've actually been trying to get a line painter for the last probably 2 months, and actually tomorrow meeting them tomorrow after weeks and weeks of postponing. If the weather stays good, we're gonna try to get them done, but it might be next spring.
Thank you. I think everybody's having a hard time getting anybody. I know we had a hard time getting line painting for parking lots as well. Any other questions? So everybody's satisfied with 3.5, everybody's satisfied with the changes on the capital projects. It's just the funding, it's not actually the projects, so I don't know that we have to go through them. Are we good with that? And we can proceed to the public meeting on December 8th?
15th?
15th? And passing,
It's January 15th.
okay. Okay. All good? I'll pass it back to the mayor.
Okay, thank you. So all I see on my agenda then is adjournment. Looking at the CAO, and he's agreeing, and the clerk is agreeing, so at this time, we'll adjourn at 6:13. Thank you very much to all the employees. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh, I thought you said whoa. Okay, I'm more than happy and prepared to whoa. We're still adjourning at 6:13. Thank you very much.